been sailing in the world ocean racing scene for many, many decades. Sydney Hobart is always, one of the pinnacle events of the year.
Almost like a little bit of an Everest for a lot of people in the sailing world.
Been iconic for a long, long time.
It definitely pushes you, and it's something you always look back on as a very, very rewarding experience.
Definitely in the top 5 races in the world.
It's one of those almost bucket list items that you want to try and tick off, and once you've done it a few times, for some reason you keep coming back.
This year you're going to see the 4 fastest 100-foot monohulls on the planet in the race.
You've got the Wild Oats, you've got the Info Track, you've got LDV Comanche, you've got the Blackjack, and they're all here ready to go to Hobart. It's amazing. It doesn't happen anywhere else in the world.
The start, no doubt, is a very stressful time.
But I think it's the spectator boats that are just mind-blowing.
It's a long race, and you can certainly lose the race if you make a mistake on the start line.
You always have to face some dramatically changing conditions.
You leave Sydney Harbour and then quite quickly find yourself in a southerly change.
It's just a really exciting time and a really exciting event.
Anyone who gets to Hobart in this race just to stop and actually look back and think, wow, we just did something pretty amazing.
The world's best sailors are here, and we are set for a magnificent day on Sydney Harbour. Not only is this a Boxing Day tradition, it is an international tradition these days. Hello everyone, welcome to the 73rd Rolex Sydney Hobart. I'm Mark Beretta, great to have you with us, and joining me in commentary, a man who has done 31 of these races, Peter Shipway. Pete, this one looks fantastic this year, and testament to how big this race is around the world, a record equalling 27 internationals.
Yes, it just shows how much it means to yachtsmen and yachtswomen right around the world. And also we've got every Australian state is represented. We've got 5 women skippers and an all-girl crew for the first time in 16 years. And also we've got a boat that's 87 years young and a boat that's 3 months young. So it's a race for everyone, and everyone wants to race in it.
It's absolutely fantastic. We can't wait to get the start underway. One thing we will be focused on today, and there's been a lot of talk about race records, but the 4 Australian Super Maxis for the first time in this race.
Yeah, the best ever, I think, for Australian Maxis. We've never seen the like before. Each of them have won line honours before in this race. Of course, Wild Oats holds the record at 8 line honours, but any one of those 4 could take it, and the forecast looks really fantastic for a very quick race, and who knows, the record could well be broken again.
Oh, we love talk of the record being broken. All right, let's have a look at where they're heading to. Of course, they will start from the start line here in Sydney Harbour.
3 separate start lines to cater for the 102 boat fleet. They'll go down through the heads to different turning marks to equalise the distance between the different starting lines, then down the east coast of New South Wales, and then across to Bass Strait, which they'll cross in pretty brisk conditions tomorrow, east coast of Tasmania to the entrance to Storm Bay at Tasman Light, 30 miles then to the entrance to the Derwent River at the Iron Pot, then 11 miles up the river to the finish in Old Hobart Town.
Well, a great day in Sydney Harbour, and let's take a check of your weather. This is what the fleet is looking forward to today. A cloudy day on the harbour, 24 degrees the expected top. There is a 30% chance of rain, the swell about 1 to 1.5 metres, and the wind, most importantly, southeasterly 15 to 20 knots. Tomorrow's forecast, the one they're all hanging on, partly cloudy, some afternoon showers possibly. There's that swell again, but the winds, all important, northeasterly 10 to 15 knots. That's the one they are waiting to see.
Well, the forecast is looking as though it could be record pace again this year. Of course, last year, remember, the record was smashed by some 4 hours by Loyal, now racing as Info Track. And again, all the models, the weather models, are predicting that it could be record pace for either one of these 4 big maxis that will provide a thrilling race down the harbour, not just for the start, but also they could all be together at the finishing line. Who knows?
Yeah, look at Wild Oats 11 there, by the way. Just over 25 minutes to go to the start, and this crew very familiar to us. Peter, you've sailed this one to Hobart many times.
Yes, look, the very similar to Blackjack, Wild Oats 11, and of course 8 line honours is a record that will take some beating. But Comanche, LVD Comanche this year, we're on her there now. She is going to be very favoured by these conditions. Tomorrow it's going to be very brisk down the southern New South Wales coast and across Bass Strait. Some of the weather models are saying up to 30 knots from the north to northeast, so these maxis are going to be absolutely scooting, and I would think that would probably favour LDV Comanche more than any other boat in the fleet. But the old story, of course, you've got to get there. First to be first to finish, first you have to finish, and who knows? We saw last year and the year before that Wild Oats unfortunately didn't make it because of breakages in the sails and then their hydraulic systems. But these boats, they're absolutely tuned to perfection. And here we are aboard Comanche.
Now, that was a look at the new owner, Jim Cooney, who has both his daughter and son on board this yacht this year. His daughter has done 2 Sydney Hobarts before, and Jimmy Spittle, there's Jimmy on the helm at the moment. What an impressive sailor he is.
Remarkable record. Grew up on Pittwater, just north of Sydney, learned his trade there, went overseas, 2 America's Cup victories with the Oracle team. Just looking behind there, that's owner Jim Cooney on the right with the glasses. And they will take some beating in this race. 1 line honours 2 years ago when she was owned by Jim Clark out of America, but now owned by Jim Cooney out of Sydney.
So LDV Comanche, Jimmy Spittle will be on the helm there, and for this all-important start, and they're just passing Wild Oats 10, the smaller of the Wild Oats, just heading back towards the line.
There's InfoTrack, last year's winner, and Beau Jest in the foreground. Interestingly, though, the weather at the moment, although it's been forecast southeast, the breeze has gone from the southeast, it's round to the east. It's not quite in the east-northeast yet, but the weather channel on the Western Channel Pilot is showing an easterly of about 10 knots. So it'll be a close reach down the harbour. These big maxis, they may lay the turning mark at the inner turning mark at the heads in one tack, and then they'll have a short tack to the outer sea mark. But at the moment, it's very light conditions. Could favour, just down the harbour, Wild Oats and Blackjack.
Great to see all these super maxis in Australian hands now. This was Loyal, Perpetual Loyal you would have known it as, set the race record last year. Anthony Bell sold it to Christian Beck, Christian who is a guru of the legal software work, and he now is in charge of this boat. He's got a great crew on there as well. It'll be skippered here by Tom Slingsby, who is another great Australian sailing name.
Fantastic Olympian. He won gold in London in 2012 in the laser class. He's been part of the Oracle America's Cup team alongside Jimmy Spittle for the last 2 challenges. So they're going to be from teammates to competitors this time. There's Blackjack. She won the Hobart race in 2009 as Alfa Romeo out of Queensland, skippered by Mark Bradford, owned by Peter Harburg. Some really top yachtsmen aboard. From New Zealand, actually, Brad Butterworth, a multiple America's Cup winner. He joined Simon Daubney and Dean Phipps from New Zealand, along with a top Australian crew. And if these lighter conditions prevail early on, then she will right alongside Wild Oats and, of course, Comanche.
And Pete, we've never seen this before. 4 Australian Super Maxis, all in what is looking like a mouth-watering duel to the finish line.
Yes, it could well be. You know, they could all get to Tasman Island roughly the same time, and then it's forecast to be relatively light. That could mean if a Comanche's ahead, the smaller, the narrower boats like Wild Oats and Blackjack could be snapping at their heels. And of course, look what the InfoTrack did last year. She got there first and smashed the record. So the record, as we know, is 1 day, 13 hours and 31 minutes, which is an average speed of about 16.8 knots. And as I said earlier, the models are saying that record could easily be broken again this year.
Wild Oats 11 is one of the yachts that will be looking at that record, but boy, have they had their dramas in the lead-up.
Yeah, look, it's pretty unfortunate. I mean, we had a lightning strike on Sunday night with the boat. Fortunately, it looks like it's come in from the shore power cable, not through the mast, so that's obviously a big bonus for us. But it's taken out a lot of the electronics on the boat. Obviously, these boats are very reliant on electronics. All the systems are run by electronics, the instrumentation. So a bit of a blow for the guys. But Paul McGee and the guys have done a great job. I mean, we've had fantastic support from the other boats. Peter Harburg and Mark Bradford from Blackjack were instantly offering parts to us and actually gave us parts. So just fantastic sportsmanship there and camaraderie, and it's been a great event. a result by everyone to get the boat back on in the ship-shape condition, ready for racing, and we'll be out there sailing today.
Yeah, quite a remarkable recovery job. And when you think of these Super Maxis, they are the Formula Ones of the water, and the only difference is the whole crew goes out on the yacht. It is quite incredible. Well, let's have a look at these two side by side. There you have Wild Oats 11 representing the Super Maxis, and Maluka, Pete, one of the smallest, most beautiful yachts in this fleet.
Yes, and just talking of comparison, the mainsail on Maluka would cost you about $7,000. The mainsail on Wild Oats 11 about $300,000 to $350,000. So that just gives you one small comparison. And Maluka, the smallest yacht in the fleet this year, Sean Langman, very talented sailor. If it's a little boat race, he'll be there or thereabouts. But I just think the weather is not going to suit the smaller boats at this stage.
Yeah, and if you're wondering what a Super Maxi gets you, it gets you to Hobart about 2.5 days quicker.
That's right. It could take Sean 6 days. The Maxis will do it in under 2 days. So you're a long time at sea.
Now remember, wherever you're travelling today, if you're out and about, if you've got to leave the TV, the 7 Plus app has you covered on your mobile device. Dial it up and you can watch all the action from this start. And don't forget, we love seeing fans react to their favourite sporting moments. So get the Moments by 7 app now and you can share your experience today. You may even end up seeing yourself on the TV.
Got a better angle of your favourite sporting moment?
Incredible tennis.
Capture it.
Put that one in the time capsule.
Share it.
Pull it up whenever you need it.
And show us your game.
This time he's got it. Out of this world.
Get the free Moments by 7 app now.
$102 yachts out on Sydney Harbour. They are preparing for the 73rd Rolex Sydney Hobart, and that will be starting in just over 15 minutes' time. But Pete Shipway, you've done 31 of these. The feeling of nerves, the excitement before a race start is pretty special.
It is. It's a mixture, really, of excitement, apprehension, tension, nervous energy. And, of course, with a forecast like this, it's you're not too scared at the moment, because if it is a southerly buster or something that's forecast for Bass Strait, that can really set the nerves going. But at the moment it looks like a very, very nice forecast for certainly for the majority of the fleet. They'll make very good progress. At the moment we're just watching Dorade, the oldest boat in the fleet. She was launched in 1930. She's a double Fastnet winner. She's won the transatlantic race, and she was the very first design of the famous Sparkman and Stevens design firm, designed by Olin Stevens, and he and his brother Rod crossed the Atlantic and took everyone by surprise by capturing the transatlantic race in 1931. Beautifully restored. She's just done the recent Fastnet race, and here she is for a very first Hobart race. And here's one of the boats that I like for handicap honours, Mascalzone Latino. It sounds like some exotic coffee, but very good crew, a Cookson 50, Bruce Farr design, canting keel, very, very good crew, and these conditions will suit this size of boat for handicap honours, I would think.
Yeah, beautiful looking boats, and of course Ichiban is out there too.
And, well, here's another famous boat, Kealoha 2. Took line honours in 1971, but when owned by Jim Kilroy, the famous American yachtsman. Now owned by brothers Paddy and Keith Broughton, being brought to Australia, sailed from England after doing the Fastnet race. Lindsay May on his 44th consecutive Hobart race navigating. And Steve McCullum, the rear Commodore of the Royal Tasmanian Yacht Club, also on board. A very talented yachtsman.
And how's the crew reliving the 70s with the terry toweling hats and the moustaches for Movember as well? Now, this is Ichiban. This is Matt Allen's latest project, the newest yacht in the fleet, and by all accounts, I mean, we know the TP52s, Peter, do very well in this race, and this is the fastest of them.
It is. Brand spanking new, built overseas, has had some very good early lead-up races, and again will figure highly in the handicap list, because I think the weather will favour the 50-footer and above range, and she will certainly be right up there. And last year in his older boat he was denied victory, finished 5th overall.
Of course, we've got the Clippers here as well. This is Great Britain joining us. 11 of the Clipper boats form part of our fleet this year, and great to have them here too. Some tremendous stories as part of the Clipper fleet which are here for us, including the youngest skipper, Nicky Henderson, who's 24 years of age, on visit Seattle. But they are just making up this incredibly colourful fleet that you see out on Sydney Harbour, and will race towards Hobart in about 12 minutes' time.
Yes, they're on a 40,000-mile 11-month circumnavigation of the world, and this Hobart race doubles as race 5 of 13 that comprise that total voyage. But here we are, Jimmy Spithill
Let's set up
on
for
board
attack,
Comanche.
guys. Try and get near the boat for this 10-minute.
So they are going into their pre-start procedure now.
They'd just be having a look at this line. It's quite tricky whether they'll lay down the harbour in one or they'll have to tack before the first turning mark. So it'll just be interesting to see where these boats are positioned, these big boats. And the white hat there, the white sun hat, Stan Honey, one of the world's leading navigators from the United States. He was aboard Comanche 2 years ago. He was aboard Comanche when she set the transatlantic record. Highly respected, highly competent navigator.
And then probably just
not only that, he's also a brilliant software engineer as well. That's where he's made a lot of money. That's the turn buoy, by the way, just before the heads. So as we pull out, you will see the start line back to the left-hand side of your screen. The spectator fleet is all in position now. That will fill up even more in the next 15 minutes or so as we head towards the race start. And back down the harbour, you can see first the Super Maxis at their start line, and back behind that the rest of the fleet for this year's race, 102 in all. And 27 internationals, 3 from the United Kingdom this year, 5 from the United States. We've got 2 New Zealand entries and entries from China, Germany, from Hong Kong, from Italy, New Caledonia, Poland and South Korea. It is truly an international race now.
Just watching Wild Oats 11 go back down towards the start. All the bigger boats are on the front line. 26 of them will be on the first line. The middle line, there's 29 yachts. And the back line, 55 yachts. And here we are, Mark Richards skippering Wild Oats.
You could just sense the tension and the build-up. The other thing you hear when you're eavesdropping on the Supermaxis is the enormous tensions and the pressure that everything is under. We talk about these Supermaxis being like Formula Ones, but they are just the pinnacle of engineering and design. They are beautiful. All right, we are waiting now, 10 seconds away now from the 10-minute gun. We'll stand by and have a listen for that.
7, 6, 5,
4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, the warning signal fired by long-time CYC life member John Keelty, who's contributed so much to the safety and the success of the Cruising Yacht Club. He has the honour of firing the 10-minute warning signal. So we're in the starters' hands now, and I just look at this breeze at the moment, Mark. It's up and down. It's not much more than 10 knots, and I think the yachts will probably lay down in 1, which means they'll be close reaching to the first turning mark. So the battle will begin of who will get first out the heads. And often we say, well, does it really matter? Well, it's obviously it's a nice psychological advantage, but also if you remember 1982, Condor beat Apollo over the line by just 7 seconds.
Yeah.
So you can easily lose 7 seconds, and that could be the difference at the end of this race in 36 to 40 hours time. Who knows? There's Mark Richards on board Wild Oats 11.
Absolutely, all that time counts, and you try telling Mark Richards that 7 seconds doesn't count, because you'll hear him shortly. He will be driving this crew and this incredible Supermaxi unbelievably hard. They want to be first out of their heads. As you said, Peter, it's psychological, but every second in this race counts.
Chris Harmson there, just looking up at the main sheet. He's the mainsail, he's the main trimmer. There's Quest, a 2-time winner of this race, this boat. One as Balance once, one as Quest. She again is one of the TP52s, highly fancied for handicap honours.
I think a great arrangement, Pete, too, is that Paul Clitheroe has it with Balance, and the two owners, they just swap over. Bob still takes it over for Quest, races it, hands it back to Paul after the race.
Yes, well, Bob's a 2-time winner. And would not surprise to see Quest winning for a 3rd time.
Gee, the overall honours are going to be tight this year. This will be a great race. The spectator fleet, incredible. You're not just having spectators out on the water, but right around Sydney Heads at the moment. Everywhere you look, you can see this big crowd 8 minutes from the start.
Your nerves are plenty now, especially on the big boats. They'll be at each other. Spithill on LDV Comanche there in the grey hat. Stan Honey, the navigator.
Hey guys, it's going to jibe around.
And that's Beau Jest. Carl Kwok's 80-footer, also in with a good handicap chance, and he won the race with a boat of the same name 20 years ago.
It's an incredible boat. I remember watching it at the finish last year. It came down the Derwent and it did that thing that all sailors hate when the wind just disappeared, and it stood still for about an hour, Beau Jest, last year. There's the spectator fleet building now in these last few minutes. Everyone who's been hanging back come charging in now. It's going to be a great race start. 7 minutes, 14, 13, 12 seconds away.
It's not quite as big a spectator fleet as we've seen in past years. I think the weather is a bit grey and overcast. It's a fairly chilly day in Sydney. It was chilly on Christmas Day here yesterday. The southerly had booted through on Christmas Eve, and this is just the tail end of the southerly. The forecast, as I said earlier, is to go round to the east, then the northeast, then to freshen, and send these boats absolutely rocketing to Hobart.
Pete, you'd have to say, from what we saw in the Big Boat Challenge, if they both managed to get off the start line well, Blackjack and Wild Oats should be duelling all the way down the harbour.
Yes, you'd think so. There's very little between these boats. It will favour these boats, Blackjack and Wild Oats 11, because it's slightly lighter. They're a narrower boat. They haven't got the big wetted surface of Comanche and Info Track. You'll see the beam of LDV Comanche compared to Wild Oats.
Make sure on starboard here.
Make sure on starboard. That's what Jimmy Spithill's saying. If they're on starboard, they've got all the rights. That means the wind is coming from their starboard or right-hand side.
Yep, I'll go between them at the moment.
Very cool customer, Jimmy Spithill. His brother, young brother, Tommy Spithill, is on Wild Oats 10, and there it is.
There's a bit of brotherly rivalry, isn't there? There's rivalry everywhere. Sebi Jarvin, the great skiff sailor, is on Wild Oats 10, and his dad, one of the most successful sailors in the history of the race, Steve Jarvin, he's been a 13 times line honours winner. He's on Wild Oats 11. That is an impressive sight. As you look down on LDV Comanche, just have a look at the width. They call this the aircraft carrier. and for good reason. It is so wide. There's even at the rear, there's a little escape hatch for anyone. If it all went pear-shaped and the boat went capsizing, there's a little escape hatch at the back where you can sneak your way out if all goes well.
Yes, you wouldn't want to be using it, but anyway.
You certainly wouldn't want to be big, Pete.
No, that's right. Anyway, coming up to the 5-minute gun, the preparatory signal to be fired by Norman Ridge, Commodore of the CYC 50 years ago, himself a Hobart yachtsman and Admiral's Cup yachtsman. There's the 5-minute gun. 5 minutes. All the clocks running now on all the boats. Tension building. Light air. Not more than 12 knots on the harbour. That's the Western Channel pile you can see. Middle of screen, the spectator craft all held back by their boys all along the course. The spectator fleet can't encroach on the race fleet and vice versa. The race fleet are not allowed into the spectator fleet.
But this is where the game of chess begins. This is pre-race start now, where everyone is jostling for the right spot, just doing their calculations, trying to find the win. Look at this. The race hasn't started. Blackjack and Wild Oats 11 are at each other.
One of the big things to notice the difference between LDV Comanche and, say, Wild Oats when we're on board those. Comanche has manual winches. That means there's guys on the old coffee grinders winding the winches, whereas Wild Oats 11 has all hydraulic winches. So you just press a button and the winch turns. So it's very different setup on these boats.
And when you see them together, there are similarities between Blackjack and Wild Oats 11 as well.
It's going to be attack.
Designed by the same design team, Reich or Pugh, built by the same boatyard, McConaughey's, very similar hull shapes. But Wild Oats has undergone some massive modifications since she was launched.
And remember, Wild Oats 11 hasn't finished the past 2 years, so they are more determined than ever. No big changes in the boat's design at the moment, other than the dagger boards, Peter, have been adjusted their angle of attack a little bit.
She's got some new sails, a new mainsail, which is a bit lighter than the previous mainsail. There she's just tacking onto port. 3 minutes 13 to go. It's not engaging with the other maxis as yet. I think they will probably need to be clean out of this start. Obviously, they just really don't want to get tangled up in anything untoward. Although we're watching Tom Slingsby on the wheel of Info Track there. Just coming back. They're all running back away from the line on port tack. And they'll be setting up shortly. They'll tack and line up to hit this line at maximum speed.
And just to the right of the screen, the white boat there is your start boat. So that's where they're lining up and getting set for a race start.
Here they go. That's what we're talking about. There's the coffee grinders. On LDV Comanche, just white trimming in the runners. There's Jimmy Spithill, cool, calm and collected. We saw him through the America's Cup on board Wild Oats.
And we should remember, Pete, this is his bread and butter too. The start of this race is a match race, really, and this is what he has made a career from. Magnificent sailor.
55 to burn.
2 minutes to go.
40 to burn.
Okay, here comes Wild Oats in.
55.
Behind Comanche. Still going away from the line. LDV Comanche tacking again. Or just holding himself up to windward. So they're not right down that leeward end because they want to be further up towards the committee boat or bottom of screen so they can lay down the harbour in one leg so they won't have to tack. It'll be now a case of time on distance. They'll put the pedal down when they think they can hit the line at maximum speed. They want to be at that line hitting top speed down this harbour.
They've got 1:20 up their sleeve now.
Okay, Bo just on left with that insignia on the mainsail. There's Info Track. There's Stan Honey aboard Comanche. Owner Jim Cooney on the right. Jimmy Spithill.
Watch Info Track. That's it.
He looks calm, Spithill. He's just saying watch Info Track. He's the only boat that can come down and make life difficult for him. Still Wild Oats on port tack, coming right up towards this windward end of the line. 55 seconds to go. The starting gun to be fired by Gordon Ingate, one of the most famous Australian yachtsmen of all time, 91 years young, America's Cup sailor, Admiral's Cup sailor, world champion sailor. It's a great tribute to Gordon and got a great sailing record that he can fire this gun. Here we are on Wild Oats. He's made the final tack, final approach. Here he comes.
And We're 30 seconds away now from this great Boxing Day tradition on Sydney Harbour. What a sight.
We're going to come down for the
They move up to the line. 20 seconds to go now. Watch for the cannon. 15 seconds from the start.
And here comes Wild Oats just in the screen now. She's well behind.
6 lengths of the line.
And they're away on the 73rd Rolex Sydney Hobart. The race to Hobart is go.
Blackjack, terrific start, midline. Just see her moving past that little boat. Wild Oats well back. Well back at the moment. There's Mark Richards just looking to leeward. You can see the big boats there. Info Track, Comanche to leeward of her LDV Comanche. Trying to put her nose forward. They're hard on the wind here. What a thrill. What a lineup. These big boats.
Oh, this is going to be a race all the way down the harbour. Fantastic. What we've dreamt of. And uncharacteristically, Wild Oats 11 just sitting back a little bit, caught out a little bit at the start.
I like Blackjack. He's just putting his nose out ahead. He'll like these lighter conditions. You can see he and Comanche have punched out away from the line. Info Track down a little bit behind Comanche. And the boat with the red dragon on the sail, Bojest.
Away they go. So LDV Comanche leads out. Blackjack is there. Info Track back behind them. Then Bojest. What a sight down Sydney Harbour.
Spectator fleet have put the throttles down too to go with them.
Pretty much on the breeze, to be honest.
Even Jimmy Spithill pretty much on the breeze at the moment. That means that they're going to be tacking before probably to get to the inner turning mark. That's the view from Wild Oats. Robbie Naismith, the trimmer down there to leeward, the grey hat. There's Mark Richards at the helm. Okay, there's LDV Comanche and Blackjack. They're the two leaders as they race to the western side of Sound Pigs.
That's good on the mould there, right? All good? Okay, on the wind a little now, boys. Big line, go main on.
They've always said this race is a real test of teamwork, and Comanche will be surprising a few at the moment because being such a wide hull, there's always the feeling in the lighter winds that hull drags down, slows them down. But boy, they're defying the critics right now.
Wild Oats 11 just starting to get rumbling now. You can see Info Track. She's toughing it out in these lighter conditions. That's the Western Channel Pile Light they're just about to come up to. Wild Oats just starting to get good clear air now. She was well buried at the start. And that's the view from Wild Oats. LDV Comanche coming round her bow. There's Info Track at Western Channel Pile.
So it's neck and neck at the front of this race at the moment. LDV Comanche is just leading Blackjack at the moment. This is going to be an arm wrestle between two of world sailing's heavyweights, both boats and crews.
Very different hull shapes, but crewed by fantastic yachtsmen, both boats.
It was just a couple of years ago we heard Mark Richards on Wild Oats 11 when Comanche took off like this say, hey, just look at that thing go. Might be doing the same right now.
It's not quite the same conditions. You can see the heel angle on Blackjack is quite significantly more than LDV Comanche. Here we are on the two leaders. Blackjack has got Comanche locked out there. Comanche could not tack, but what Jimmy Spittle will be trying to do on LDV Comanche is to squeeze up onto Blackjack and try and put bad air onto his sails, but I don't think he's got the speed to be able to do that. I think Blackjack seems to just have a tickle of speed, as you'd expect in this light airs. He's slowly advancing on Comanche, so that could mean that she could turn the first turning mark in first place. Just past the channel marker there on the western side of Sydney Harbour. They're across. The western side is Obelisk Bay. To the east is Camp Cove. There's Sound Pigs Reef just in the background. They're all to the western side of that. And it's Blackjack holding the honours at the moment. You can see the fleet back in the other starting lines. They're having to tack already. They will be getting very disturbed air from this front lot of yachts. It's very difficult back there. The air's all over this place in this lighter air. It's all split up by these sails. There's the Sound Pig Reef just in the top of screen. And you can see that there's not much wind at all. The boats are very upright here. And just to windward of Wild Oats 11 is Wild Oats 10. They've done remarkably well. InfoTrack is a bit gluey in these conditions. Don't forget, she led the fleet out of the heads in the last 2 Hobart races and broke the record last year, but she will need stronger winds than this to get rolling. Blackjack doing a very, very nice job. Skipper Mark Bradford and his top-class crew are leading this race. Here's Comanche. Just doing about 10.5 knots. So they're well down from maximum speed, but the breeze is down. Of course, the less the breeze, the less the speed of the boat.
We've got 2 minutes, guys, on the wind. We'll go past this first mark, okay? For us here now.
So they're just getting the navigational call. They've got 2 minutes to the turning mark. They're just coming up to South Reef. There's South Reef in the background. Channel marker just ahead of them. You can see that the lighter Blackjack is heeled a lot more than Comanche. That's enabling her to power up a lot more, and she's just advancing ever so slightly. And they've opened up a fair gap, as you can see. These 2 leaders have sprung away from Wild Oats 11 and certainly InfoTrack. This little Wild Oats 10 that's doing very well. Here we are on Blackjack. The way the breeze is at the moment, they will be tacking between the two marks, the turning marks at the heads. They'll turn one, and the next mark's about another nautical mile to the east. So they'll be tacking out there before they can set a course for Hobart. You can see just below the ferry, the Manly ferry there, the yellow buoy. That's their first turning mark. They will turn that and then be on the wind out to sea.
Well, Blackjack in line to take the honours out of Sydney Harbour. An impressive display by both of these. They have left the other 2 maxis in their wake at the moment. So Blackjack doing great things, and LDV Comanche surprising speed up the harbour. And Jimmy Spittle, you'd think, would be pretty happy with the way this is performing right now. Very much so. With the forecast of building breezes, which will suit this boat dramatically, I think he very happy with how they're going. And also, the start was very tame, really, between all these big boats. I think they realised there was just one leg down the harbour. There wasn't many opportunities they could take down there, and they've just gone straight down the heads to the heads. And there's the turning mark. They will turn. There's the crew on the rail, trying to give the boat a bit of extra stability. Jim Cooney in the foreground.
A little left here.
He would be a very happy new boat owner. This was a fairly late campaign from his point of view, wasn't it? He only picked up the boat a month or 2 ago.
So you can see the keels of certainly of Blackjack. It's a canting keel. That means it swings out to windward to give stability. There it is there. A great view of that canting keel. So all these 4 big maxis are canting keelers. Keel swings from side to side. Of course, that's what brought Wild Oats undone last year. Wild Oats 11, the hydraulic ram that pushes this massive keel from side to side, sheared off, and she had to retire in the middle of Bass Strait. Here's the turning mark. So just nearly 9 minutes after the start, Blackjack puts his nose around first. And he'll make life a bit difficult for Comanche here, because Comanche can't tack.
Are we calling water soon, Kelby? We go for it now. Hey, water!
So they're calling water, saying they're about to be outside the course into the spectator fleet, so you've got to turn for me.
That's correct. So Blackjack's got to give him rights.
3, 2, 1, here we go.
See, it's very calm on Comanche. He's a very cool customer, Jimmy Spithill. Blackjack tacks, then swing the keel over to the left hand or windward side. Here the boys on the pumps, you watch them go. Here they go. Blackjack is still in the control of this race. He can pinch up here and make life really difficult for Jimmy Spithill, especially in this lighter air going into the wind. There's a bit of sloppy seas between the heads, as tradition has it. The tide is coming in, though, so it'll settle the water down a bit. But Blackjack will really control this race now out to the next turning mark, as we're watching Wild Oats 11 will be third around.
So about a minute behind.
So she struggled out of the start a bit, but she punched out of the group, and here she is. There's the turning mark. Things are calm at this stage aboard Wild Oats 11. And you can see there the angle of Comanche. She's really struggling. You can see Blackjack is just going ahead over every wave. It's really hurting Comanche, this light air, sloppy water. And I think it will be a big assistance for Wild Oats 11. She will make some good, valuable ground up here as they approach the next turning mark, the final turning mark before they're Hobart bound.
Yeah, you can see Mark Richards there almost licking his lips. He knows he's going to make some ground up and most likely get past Comanche and then onto this race with Blackjack into the night.
There's Ian Murray there, just looking back. He's the eyes and ears of this boat. He's been on board for all her successes. Ian Burns, the navigator on the right, the man they call Fresh. He was part of the Oracle America's Cup team as well. So we've got three of the Oracle boys on three different boats. There's the tack coming in from Wild Oats. Mark Richards just going down to the leeward helm. They've positioned the boat pretty nicely here. They're out on the windward side of the course, looking for good pressure. There's a great shot of that beautiful mainsail from North Sails, one of the world's leading sailmakers. And there's the little Wild Oats 10, fantastic. Fourth round, just ahead of Infotrack.
Isn't it amazing, a campaign by the Oatley family to have two big contenders, one for overall and one for line honours, and it's the first time that Wild Oats 10 has sailed to Sydney Hobart.
Very young crew, skippered by Troy Tyndall, the son-in-law of Sandy Oatley. Got a lot of skiff boys aboard. And Ed Powys on his first trip to Hobart, son of Dave Powys, who won the race back in 1976 aboard Piccolo. So a nice bit of history there. Sebi Jarvan, the world 18-foot skiff champion, as you mentioned before. And they'd be very pleased with the way they're doing. But you can see here, what I was saying before, how much Blackjack is enjoying these light conditions. Sloppy water through the sea, through the heads, will be really hurting Comanche, these conditions. But as soon as they get to the turning mark, there'll be easing sheets for Hobart. The breeze will strengthen, and Comanche should come into her own. But take nothing away from Blackjack. You can just see this sloppy water bouncing around. Up she goes, down she goes. It's hard to keep the boats moving. You've got to power them up. The sails need to be deep to give power. And if you're narrow, you can see how narrow Blackjack is compared to Comanche. Comanche is twice as wide as Blackjack. And she's really hurting in these waves. She's going up and down and bouncing. It's very hard steering. Hard to trim. You need really powerful sails in these lighter conditions. And LDV Comanche will just struggle on this passage between the two marks. And there's an idea of the beam or the width of this boat. That's the stern we're looking at. There's Jimmy Spithill. He won't be too worried. They'll get to this first mark, the second mark, and they'll be off.
Yeah, his eyes on the prize, isn't he? They know that there's a potential race record as well as line on this up for stakes for them. They're in a good position. But Blackjack has really put on an impressive display. That's a great run out of the head. So two of the Super Maxis, Blackjack and LDV Comanche, now clear of Sydney Heads. And behind them is Wild Oats 11, and then Wild Oats 10 and Infotrack back in fifth spot at the moment.
You can just see the spectator fleet is starting to grow as well. That would make the water even more sloppy conditions, and that's really difficult for the yachts. And here's the next turning mark in the foreground. So Blackjack will lay down here on port. He'll probably do one more tack and then try and lay into the mark. There he goes now.
Good timing, Pete.
Yep, there he goes. So he will stand across on starboard and try and lay this mark in one after he tacks. LDV Comanche has tacked as well to leeward of, there he goes, to leeward of Blackjack. Boys just getting the sails in. And here comes Wild Oats as we expected. She's made big inroads onto LDV Comanche. She will be cross ahead of her, even though she's on port tack. I think she'll be clear ahead. Yes, she will be. Wild Oats is into the second spot, and she's done very well there.
Gee.
Very well. It's a narrow cross. Is she going to... What's going to happen here?
Piece of him here.
LDV.
Stubborn!
Yes, he's called him. They've got all the rights, LDV. They're on starboard tack, and Wild Oats has got a tack.
Protest here.
Wild Oats is tacking. This is close. Whoa.
Protest!
Protest, they're calling.
You want to bail out or hold?
Let's listen, let's listen. Jimmy Spithill says, should we hold there? Did they tack too close? Did Wild Oats tack too close?
Yeah, there you go. We're going to have to bail here, Kelvin. Hey, that's way too far. No problem. Protest! How far to ley line, Stan? No problem. Stan, how far to ley line?
Gee. That is about as close as you want to get two multi-million-dollar maxis.
Okay, what happened here was that LDV Comanche had all the rights because she was on starboard tack. Wild Oats had no right. She had to either duck behind them or tack early. She tacked probably a little bit too late. Jimmy Spitthill's claiming they tacked too close and they had to alter course. They were going to protest. We don't know whether they will protest or not, but there goes Wild Oats. She's tacked. Spithill was saying to Stan Honey, how far do the ley line stand? That means how long do they go before they tack and lay the mark. So plenty of action. Plenty of action there.
Unbelievable. While that's happening, Blackjack has made a break. They're out of there. It's always the way when you get a couple dueling in the background.
Stretch it out a bit.
It just slows them both down. Boy, that gets the heart racing.
I can't see whether there's a protest flag on LDV Comanche. They don't seem to be carrying on too much about it. Maybe it was just a bit of adrenaline getting into the system. But he's so cool, that Jimmy Spithill. Just nothing phases him. In the distance, Blackjack should be laying in the mark.
And that moment between Wild Oats 11 and Comanche.
Come on the wind.
Yes, there is a protest flag. See that red flag under, just behind our camera girl there? That's the protest flag. Now, Wild Oats can absolve herself by doing penalty turns if she feels she was in the wrong. And history would dictate that she should perhaps do them, because I've been involved in boats that have had nasty incidents and the race has been taken away from us at the end of the day because we didn't do the penalty turns or they weren't around in those days. But there's the protest flag, so that means that Jimmy Spithill and the boys aboard LDV Comanche will be protesting Wild Oats for that incident of tacking too close. But meanwhile, Blackjack keeps on keeping on.
Well, magnificent.
The state of origin, first blood to Queensland.
There they go. The Queenslanders lead out of Sydney Heads. They've done it again. We're back with more in just a moment.
job. No, we're easy late. Yeah, it looks that. No more than 12 at the moment.
Super Foiler Racing coming to 7 this summer. We can't wait. And it is Blackjack, named after the great Sir Jack Brabham, and true to name at the moment, leading them out of Sydney Heads and in the start of this incredible 73rd Rolex Sydney Hobart. This has been a tremendous effort, and Comanche and Wild Oats 11 are dueling back behind there. In fact, Wild Oats 11 has got clear now, moves into second place, and back there at the top left of your screen, that is LDV Comanche. There's been a bit of controversy, a protest by Comanche, and that could make this race even more interesting, Pete.
Yes, well, we heard a lot of screaming and yelling when they both got super close on the way out to the turning mark, and protests were yelled. It looked like a protest flag flying, but so we'll have to see the outcome of that. Here we are aboard Comanche. They're just dropping their working headsail and putting their big reaching headsail up, as we saw Blackjack with a beautiful big reaching headsail up, and they're smoking down the coast at the moment. They will be extending in these lighter conditions. There's Wild Oats. She's standing out to sea a little bit more, but you can see the real difference between these two boats. The massive beam of LDV Comanche and the narrowness of Blackjack and Wild Oats 11. There's the keel out to windward to give the stability. Big, beautiful reaching headsail. Sails set to perfection. And they're 15, 18, 20 knots down the coast. And by this time tomorrow, they will be absolutely rocketing across Bass Strait and down the east coast of Tasmania.
Yeah, with their eyes on Hobart too. Race predictions are for a record to fall again this year, and after the start of what we've seen so far, you'd have to think that's a pretty good guess at the moment. Comanche, just incredible. And you mentioned too, Pete, the different hulls, but they both have their strengths, don't they? They both suit different conditions.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly right. We are aboard.
For me, Scottsville, we're like 110 at the moment, right? Big fella, we've got to be like 20 lower for the zero. 20 lower for the zero right now. Yeah, I still think it's cheap.
We go back and have a look at the rest of the fleet coming out. We've got about 5 or 6 out through the heads, and this is part of the 95 or so still remaining in this 102 yacht fleet. and some beautiful boats all over the world. 27 internationals, a record equaling number this year, which is great. 102, as we said, in the fleet, and great to see them out there. Heartbreaker there.
Quite slow for these boats in this lighter air. As I mentioned earlier, it's all disturbed by the bigger boats. It takes a while to settle it down. Heartbreaker, designed by the same team that designed Wild Oats boats, Reichel Pugh, which is a 46-footer out of the Royal Brighton Yacht Club.
Yep, flying the flag for Victoria, yep.
Comes Warwick Sherman in occasional coarse language.
For all of these crews, this is the start of a very big journey over the next 3, 4, 5 days. They'll race their way towards Hobart in all sorts of varying conditions. It'll be a nice one this year. For your first timer, Pete, this is a nice one to begin on.
Certainly would be a good one to do. And the Hobart race is never easy, but some are easier than others. And this will be one of the, looking at the forecast, this will be one of the easier ones.
Now, let's have a look back at what happened here between Wild Oats 11 and LDV Comanche, because this was a big moment. It could be important in how this race unfolds.
Exactly. Wild Oats had no rights. She was on a port tack. Comanche had all the rights. So Wild Oats, well, even though she tacked onto starboard, she cannot tack too close. That causes Comanche, LDV Comanche, to change course. You can see arms waving aboard Comanche. They didn't actually collide, but it was very, very close.
Tense moments here at the start. It has been another fantastic start. Stay with us. More shortly. This one is a Boxing Day tradition, the Rolex Sydney Hobart, and you're watching LDV Comanche sitting third place at the moment. Blackjack leads, Wild Oats 11 sitting in second, and LDV Comanche sitting in third spot. Well, it has always been a much anticipated battle of the Super Maxis, this one. How about this? The 4 Australian-owned Super Maxis, each one of them has won the race here, line honours-wise, and 2 of them have had race records. Incredible fleet. But this is at the other end of this incredible fleet. 102 yachts battling it out this year. And these are the rest of them coming around and leaving the heads now.
Yes, the boat in shot now is Grace O'Malley, won the recent Cabbage Tree Island yacht race. very, very good little boat, very good crew. Carl Crawford, Hugh Brodie, Vanessa Dudley, all the highly experienced Hobart yachtsmen and women. Carl has won the race a number of times. If it's a little boat race, Grace O'Malley will certainly come into calculations. But back on Comanche, she's just settling down now. The crew are back on the weather rail, and they are just starting to getting going with a bit more breeze. And we're standing by for a bit of action off the back of Comanche.
We are indeed. That's our camera person, Mel McPherson, on the back of Comanche. She gets us those beautiful shots from on board and the sound of Jimmy Spittle and the team. But it comes to a point where she needs to get off. She really doesn't want to go all the way to Hobart. So about off Bondi, if you're up there watching, you're about to see Mel McPherson perform one of her famous dives as she exits the back of Comanche. Now remember, they're moving along pretty quick, about 15 knots at the moment, Pete. So that is quite a leap. So she packs up her camera gear, the guys give her a hand, and she will get off in a very graceful way from the back of Comanche. Same thing on Wild Oats 11. Tim Nurmi is our cameraman on there. He'll depart the same way, but it's pretty courageous by our crews because it's not an easy thing to do, and we put a lot into making sure that they are safe and they can capture us those great onboard pictures. They are awesome at what they do. That's Blackjack, by the way, just heading down towards Bondi Beach now, and Wild Oats 11 has gone a little bit wider out to sea.
She's got a different sail configuration. She's got a smaller jib or a staysail set inside the front reaching sail. They've got a prodder out the side to give a better angle of attack to the wind. She's standing quite a lot further out to the east or to seaward of Blackjack, quite significantly different. As you can see, the two courses, and everything looks pretty calm and cool on board.
Yeah, it's so often said, Peter, it's such a test of seamanship. Speaking of which, here's our Mel McPherson. Goodbye, guys. She's off. There goes her camera and gear, and there's a pickup boat right there to get her in. We put a helicopter up above to keep an eye on her. She's got a life jacket on as well. But first, they'll recover Mel. And next up, we get the camera gear. Oh, okay, I think the dismount was better than the entry into the boat, Pete, but she's in safely. Well done, Mel. Good work. Give us a wave. There you go. She's hard at work. She can't wave right now. There you go. Thanks, Mel. Good to see you're okay. All right, we'll take a break. Got plenty more great action from the start of the Sydney Hobart coming up in just a moment. Welcome back. The 73rd Rolex Sydney Hobart is well underway, and there's a shot of Blackjack at the moment, just passing, or well past now, the iconic Bondi Beach. What a shot, eh? Spectator fleet out there, they're following down, but Blackjack has shown them a clean pair of heels this afternoon. They've done a great job, Pete, haven't they, the Blackjack crew?
Very cool, calm and collected at the start, did a nice job down the harbour, and very good exit of the heads. There's Comanche, LDV Comanche, just starting to rumble now. The breeze is starting to pick up a little bit. It's from the east-northeast now, and you can see her, she's quite well heeled. She's got her reaching sails up.
Yeah, a remarkable boat, has a great history in this race. Great to see them back again this year.
It's a very complex boat. There's a lot going on inside it. A lot of its hydraulics are very state-of-the-art. You know, the systems inside the boat are very, very unique. The boat weighs about 32 tonnes all up when racing. We draw 6.8 metres, 7.5 metres wide. The thing will just go 26, 28 knots all day long in the right conditions. So to maintain and make sure the thing's working the whole time is my job. It's just a big, powerful beast. Comanche has broken transatlantic record, 24-hour record, the Transpac record. They're the majors that we've gone after and broken. Last year was a record run, and it's going to be very hard to best that one. You know, we've got the weapon to do it, but you've got to get the weather as well.
I won't jinx us by saying we have the best chance of winning, but it's an honor to be asked to navigate on a boat like Comanche. It's absolutely a pinnacle boat in the sport. I think any of the 100-footers will, give us a run. Wild Oats is, particularly well sailed and particularly well prepared, and I think the odds are favoring them to have a good race this year, given that they've had some hard luck.
I haven't sailed a boat like this ever before. I mean, this is definitely the pick. It's an absolute weapon, Once it's powered up, once it's sort of reaching or downwind, the boat is incredible. It's like a huge dinghy. The guys that are on board this boat have done a lot of miles, a lot of really successful offshore sailors. Me personally, I do a bit of driving, probably do a bit of trimming and a bit of grinding. So it's just a great opportunity to learn and just keep sharpening the skills.
Yeah, amazing when a man like Jimmy Spittle, who's done so much in the world of sailing, says he's still learning, and enjoying learning is just fantastic. And there it is, LDV Comanche. A great start. Lost a little bit heading through the heads, but back in the race now. And Pete, from what we understand of these conditions, what's coming up will really suit Comanche over the next 24 hours or so.
Yes, certainly it will tomorrow when it's fresh, but at the moment it's probably even Stevens. You can see the Wild Oats 11 and Blackjack are obviously doing a very good job at the moment. Wild Oats 11 has moved a bit further out to sea than Blackjack. You can see her down well into shore there. There's LDV Comanche in the foreground. I'd just like to take this opportunity to wish a couple of famous Australian and overseas yachtsmen the very best who haven't been in the greatest of health. Normie Hyatt, a Hobart veteran, two-time winner. The big fella's in hospital, so we wish you well, Normie. And Jeff Stagg, watching from Annapolis in the United States. All the best to you, Jeff, also a two-time Hobart winner.
All right, Blackjack leads them at the moment as they head south along the New South Wales coast. We'll be back in just a tick. They're underway now in the 73rd Rolex Sydney Hobart. This is Blackjack just off Maroubra Beach, southern part of Sydney's eastern beaches at the moment. And there's one of our favourites, Maluka out there, Sean Langman, crew of 6 on board. Beautiful boat, this one. And not quite to the first turning marker, and this just shows the incredible extremes of this race.
Yeah, just gently moving their way out through the heads. We just saw Blackjack. She's changed her sail configuration. She's hoisted up a staysail, but here we are on Wild Oats 11.
Yep, that's Tim Nurmi, our cameraman. That's how he departs the boat. The gear in hand, thumbs up that he's okay, and the pickup boat will be in to grab him in just a sec.
Just shows, Mark, how quickly, if we hope it never happens, someone falls overboard, how quickly the boats disappear from the crew member.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's frightening, really, to see how quick, especially these big maxis are moving at probably 15 to 18 knots, how far a crew member ends up in the water if they do, how far behind if they do happen to fall over.
Yeah, you sort of lose track of how quick they're going out there, don't they?
Yes.
But the size is deceiving. They are flying along, so that's roughly about 15, 20 knots at the moment.
Yeah. The breezes are still about 10 to 12 knots, but interestingly, looking at the weather forecasting, the stations down the east coast, the northeaster is already in at point perpendicular. It's 14 knots. Down at Gabo Island, which is certainly a long way away, it's up at 25 knots. So I think as the day goes on, this east to northeasterly breeze will get fresher and fresher and fresher, and we can see these big boats are really going to start getting some distance away from the smaller boats.
Quite remarkable. So there they are, 1, 2, 3. Closest in to Maroubra Beach at the moment. That's Blackjack. Wild Oats 11 is out in the top left hand of your screen. And in third spot at the moment is LDV Comanche. But so much can happen as this evening unfolds. And as Pete was saying, the wind changes. And there it is. Maluka has made the turn at the first mark. Well done to Sean Langman and the crew. They are tricky conditions at the moment. And they're bringing up the rear in this field of 102 yachts on the Sydney Hobart for 2017.
It is time for history. The world is watching.
X Games is coming to Australia.
Holy licorice, that's never been done on Earth.
We came to conquer, we came to win.
Kyle Mulder claims another BMX vert gold medal.
We're going for the gold, we'll get the prize.
From the 19th to the 21st of October 2018.
Queenslanders, you'll be enjoying this. Your Super Maxi Blackjack is leading the way in the Rolex Sydney Hobart. They are heading south almost to Port Botany at the moment as they make their way away from Sydney and pointing towards Hobart for this incredible race. So Blackjack leads them at the moment. Wild Oats 11 sits in second place and LDV Comanche sits in third. What were you doing, or what will you be doing at 24 years of age? Well, for Brit Nikki Henderson, she is skippering Visit Seattle in this race, the youngest skipper in the field.
Hearing about the Sydney Hobart, I've heard about it all my life. It's one of the iconic races, definitely in the top 5 races in the world. Yeah, I only just found out I was the youngest skipper for the Sydney Hobart, so yeah, that is very, very cool. I'm very excited about that. Getting across the start line of the Sydney Hobart in one piece and out the heads is probably 50% of the achievement. Yeah, no, it's going to be stressful. You've got to be on the ball, and we're also sailing, 23 people plus me. 60% of them have never sailed before, and we also have a 50-50 split male-female. So that poses its own challenge in managing that size of crew and teaching them as we're going as well. Sailing is very male-dominated, so I think while I don't really like to think of myself as a female sailor, I like to think of myself as a sailor like everyone else. I think, it's important that women don't run away from the fact that they are women in a male-dominated industry, and that we do need to tap onto the female skippers out there and the successful female sailors so that the industry is encouraged to change and we encourage more women to get involved. My biggest competition in my class of boat, well, I suppose I'm only really looking at the Clipper fleet at the moment, and that would definitely be Wendy Tuck. We all joke about following Wendo all the way there, but I think maybe we'll try something different, otherwise we'll never actually beat her. Is my job satisfying? It is very rewarding. It's also really, really tough at times. I think being a skipper and being a leader is often a very thankless job. When you get into port, it feels really, really amazing. And I think anyone who gets to Hobart in this race, just to stop and actually look back and think, wow, we just did something pretty amazing and got everyone in safe and fast.
Well, Wendy Tuck is another Australian. She's the skipper of the another Clipper yacht, Sanya Serenity Coast. A very, very competent yachtswoman, and she just beat Nikki's crew on the leg from Fremantle to Sydney by just 16 minutes. So they're going to have a terrific battle to Hobart.
Let's have a look back at the big moment of this race. Now, this is Wild Oats 11 and Comanche coming incredibly close, and a protest lodged by Comanche.
Yeah, there it was. Wild Oats, no rights there, claimed by LDV Comanche to tack too close or in her water, and she had to take avoiding action. A lot of screaming, a lot of yelling, a lot of hand waving. So we'll have to see how that all pans out in the next day or so.
Unbelievably close.
It was very close. Quite a big risk taken, I think, by Wild Oats. But here they are, powering their way south. In the foreground is the leader, Blackjack, narrowly from Wild Oats 11 and LDV Comanche.
And don't forget, you can follow the race on the Yacht Tracker. It is magnificent. You can trail them all the way down, and I'm talking about the entire fleet. You can follow them in overall and in line honours, and Yacht Tracker is up and running from now. So keep an eye on them over the next 24 hours. We're talking about a race finish, loosely, sometime tomorrow night, which would be a race record. So Blackjack steaming away magnificently at the moment. She looks absolutely brilliant. Really hope you've enjoyed our coverage here today from all of our hard-working crew and Peter Shipway, great to have you once again with us. It has been absolutely magnificent. Always gives us drama. You see Blackjack leading at the moment, Wild Oats 11 sitting in second place, and then LDV Comanche back from there in third. And the fleet of 102 yachts is now well on their way to Hobart. Thanks for your company. We'll see you soon.
Here we go.